All right, welcome back to another episode of the Gym Business Coach Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Yangston, joined in studio by Zack Columbia.
You nailed it that time.
I know.
Rolled right off the tongue.
Week after week, it's getting a little bit better, We're diving into a topic today that it affects all of our businesses. We're going to be talking some of the components around selling our services, bringing a sales presentation to the table, how to go about it. This one's a little bit more conversational. I think we're going to kind of talk through this. I don't know if we have a hard belief left or right on what is best, but we want to bring the topic to conversation so that you as well can start to refine, optimize your sales process for the hope of a better result.
Conversational and maybe a little controversial.
Ooh.
You know? Ooh. Just, you know.
Let's see how it goes.
Now everybody's curious. See how I did that? So for a long time in our industry, there has been this belief or strategy that you use a PowerPoint presentation during the sales consultation. Many gyms have done this with pretty solid success. I personally am against it. So I'll kind of lay out my argument for it.
Sure.
I think we can talk about it. We can kind of, maybe highlight like the pros and the cons of being for it versus against it. If it's something that somebody, uses and it works super well for them, then, we're not going to say stop doing it, but I would, maybe challenge you to look at, a big picture here and just, make sure it's working for you collectively. So, when you are doing a sales consultation, we call them starting points here. I always preach or teach when it comes to sales, like sell one thing at a time. One thing at a time. Like gyms get into trouble, especially younger trainers that maybe are moving into a sales role or directors or whatever. You get into trouble when they try to like sell a whole entire, package or, we do stretch, we do training, we do nutrition. They're trying to sell everything all at once, and it's like very prescriptive. I don't like that approach because like they get on the phone with somebody and it's like the goal is to just get that person. You have one goal, is to get that person to book a consultation, give them the minimal information necessary to move them to the next stage of the sales cycle, of which there are 5. So it's like, I'm going to sell the next step and then the next step and then the next step. And so like young salespeople, a lot of times they'll get on the phone and they're like, I have to make the sell. And it's like, no, you're not trying to sell this person anything other than to come in and meet with you, keeping that in mind that there's like, you're trying to sell one thing. You have to also have kind of this subconscious layer or keep in mind that you are just selling one thing at a time. That's the main goal. But you're also trying to turn somebody into a long-term member. So that exists kind of as the foundation. It's not the main focus or main goal. We're still selling one thing at a time, but this whole entire process is designed so that we can turn somebody into a long-term member and build this like really deep relationship between the business and them. And that's the major argument that I have against a PowerPoint presentation is it's very transactional. If I'm presenting, I'm not listening.
There you go. Yeah.
So it's kind of puts us in this, I want to say like, it makes us look professional when we have a presentation. However, it's like, here's all about us and what we do. It's not, here's all about you and how we can help.
There you go.
And as soon as, even if there's slides or moments built into the presentation for me to stop and extract that information from the prospect, as soon as I revert back to the presentation, it's all transactional again. There's like this real like disconnect.
Yeah, it's almost like you versus them as opposed to like we're doing this together type of thing.
Yes,
sure.
And a presentation is by default. I'm not customizing the presentation in real time based off of what that person is telling me.
Yeah.
So I am pigeonholed into responding one specific way instead of knowing what the desired outcome is and then adapting how I respond to make it match that client's individual situation. So it's very rigid.
Mm-hmm.
It's very transactional, and it may work to get the conversion, but what about the long term? So it's about like the identity shift. Very few prospects come in to meet with you with the expectation of, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I'm signing up for the rest of my life. That just doesn't, it just doesn't exist. Like you think about the psychology, it's like they have a problem, they're in pain, they've reached the pain threshold. It's now I have to take action. I have to do something about this. There's some internal urgency in their mind. And it's like they get to the consultation with I'm going to solve this problem and then I'm good. It's not like I'm coming into it thinking, oh, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. From the time we make contact with that person, we're trying to shift their identity.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to shift their identity from what we would refer to as like a transformational client to a lifestyle client. So even though we're selling one stage at a time, there's still this underlying psychology of like, I'm shifting identity for them to become a lifelong member.
Yeah.
And it's you lose that, I think, when you sell from a presentation.
Yeah, I think one of the big things that you said that really resonates with kind of the way I see it as well is it makes the presentation about you, the person giving the presentation, the business that's positioning the offer and what we have to sell, as opposed to we talk all the time like this is a relationship-based business. If you were to go into a doctor and they did a presentation and they just listed out all of the medications that they could prescribe you versus sitting there and listening to what you're personally going through and catering it to, all right, within my level of knowledge, let me eliminate 3/4 of these and only give you what's applicable for you and the problem that you're experiencing or the pain that you're in right now. It makes it that much more relational based as opposed to transactional based. And I think because we are in such a relationship business that a presentation can absolutely get you started off on the wrong foot, where it's literally about what I can sell to you as opposed to what you need from me. One of those things that you mentioned too about the journey. Well, let's take us through this. So let's say that we're selling one thing at a time. If through the conversation I've identified, what are the needs of this client, and we can speak to that, and they agree and get started, how do we take them from that to then maybe ascending them up our programs or our offerings to get a better result over time? How do we keep that person or transition them into a lifestyle client once the relationship has kind of taken off or started? Yeah.
And you're saying like if you're not selling from a presentation, or
exactly. I mean, just because let's say if we've got 3 services, and sure, we sell 3 out of the gate? Absolutely. But we've identified that the challenge that they're facing is their training.
Yeah.
They get started with the training program, but we also have stretch and we also have nutrition. How do we then bring that into the conversation over time, or make it known that, hey, maybe they are a viable candidate for those services as well?
Well, so this could go back to kind of the last episode that we talked about with the life cycle and thinking about all the possible outcomes. So if you're listening to this, I'm sure you've had this happen before, where you have a client that comes in and they're like, yes to everything. I want it all. Give me the training, give me the nutrition, give me the stretch, and I want the add-on for the infrared sauna and like all the things. And that person is like, they show up to like one workout and then just like ghost you, right? Pretty much everybody's had that happen listening. And so think about the psychology of that person when they came in. That's somebody that is not necessarily in this for the long haul. They're just, instead of it being a slow drip, they're like belly flopping into the pool and they smack and then it's over. And so we have at Legacy, we have a specific process. When somebody starts with us, we sell them the training with a 2-week guarantee. We sell them into the annual with a 2-week guarantee, but we sell them into a body mapping phase of training. Their first 2 weeks is an assessment process. So it's, you're going to come in, you're going to work out. The coaches are going to assess the quality of your movement. They're going to score you in over 80 different categories. We're going to, that's how we customize your program. That's going to all take place in week 1. And then in week 2, you'll continue working out, but we're going to schedule a stretch consultation where we do a 25-minute stretch. We're going to, during that appointment, we're going to do a Kinotech movement assessment. So we're going to full assessment of your movement quality. And we're going to have you log your food for 3 days consecutively. And then at the end of your second week, we're going to meet, and then we're going to look at we're going to look at the training. We're going to look at the stretch therapy. We're going to look at the nutrition. They're already signed up for the training. So then at that point, we're going to either sell them nutrition or stretch therapy based off of whichever one kind of matches, or none of them, if none of them do. But that's like a kind of the initial step. And then every single stage from there is going to be like, hey, we're going to check in 2 weeks later. Their scores are improving. We're going to reassess. And so there's this whole entire like journey that's mapped out. Now, could you outline that for everybody in a consultation, or in a presentation? Of course you could, but again, like when we're presenting this to somebody, we're presenting it to them based off of the responses that they get. There's no like, there's a path, but there's also like what's important to that individual, you know? Another thing is like masculine versus feminine language. So if I'm meeting with a female in a consultation, and you would probably know this based off of the name, so you could use 2 different, presentations. But like if I'm meeting with a female, I'm going to, the words that I use and the language that I use is going to be different than the language and the words that I use when I'm meeting with a male. They're 2 different psyches.
Sure.
A female will invite you to be a part of their journey, their fitness journey. Starting this fitness journey and wants you to be a part of it. A male wants to know like, what's it going to take and how long for me to hit my goals?
Yes.
A female will say, I'm starting, And a male will say, I've tried and you know, like it's not working for me. I need help now. They're totally different, you know, conversations. I don't know that person's goals when they come in. Going back to our pro fit closing model, that's what we use. So purpose, opposition, purpose, recognition, opposition, find, introduce, trap. When somebody, when we get to the recognition stage, it's like I'm trying to recognize, you know, what it is most important to that person. And based off of their response, I'm going to use then leverage. And so the leverage is either going to be positive leverage, which is like, hey, I have something to gain here. I, you know, want to get in shape for this trip that I'm going on. I'm not enjoying my life to the fullest. I want to be able to hike. I want to be able to do these things. It's gain. What do I have to gain? And then if they respond a specific way, I'm going to use negative leverage. I'm concerned. My doctor told me I need to start working out.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't solve this problem now, you're like, it sounds to me like the problem is, or the reason that you're really here is like, you're fearful if you don't solve this problem now, there's gonna be like consequences and there'll be a point of no return.
Sure.
Negative, right? Or there's normative where somebody comes in and they're like, yeah, I had a personal trainer and I got the best results in the world and I just fell off and I know that I need to start working out again. Phenomenal. That person already knows that training is the solution. Their actions don't align with their beliefs. And now I'm going to use normative leverage for the rest of our conversation. So I need to, different outcomes, I need to not pigeonhole myself in order to adapt the conversation to this person. Now, and stop me because I know I'm going here, but like,
nailed it, yeah.
But like, you know, with a PowerPoint like presentation, as you know, maybe I've got a brand new director and they're doing the sales consultations and I'm going to send them down this one specific path. Okay. You know, yeah, that's going to provide them with some tools and, you know, a little bit more structure. However, when I'm coaching a new director on sales, I'm like, the fact that you don't know anything about sales psychology is probably like your greatest strength right now because because you're just passionate about what you do.
Sure.
And through conversation, that's going to come out as like, you're genuinely wanting to help people. You're passionate about this. The second I go to a presentation, I'm then like, I'm losing that connection with somebody.
Yeah. It's almost an authenticity or,
yeah,
you know.
Yeah. So you can have the system without, you know, without that. You can train somebody on like these things. It's going to take more time, you know, for them to really hone in on it.
Yeah, and I think it's important to point out, left or right, it's not, even, let's say you're not using a presentation and it's more conversational. I think it's still important, like you've mentioned, the ProFit method that we have, it's still a system in place where we're checking boxes, right? There's still objectives throughout that conversation that we're covering, but it's not done so tight to where it's almost like a script, you know, where it loses some of that authenticity or the natural ability to respond accordingly to what the prospect has said. You know, I definitely, personally, I agree. I think especially because what we sell, especially with semi-private, the gyms that we work with, even the gyms we coach, the value of what we bring to the table is the unique, individualized program.
Yeah.
I don't know how well you could cater a presentation to that unless without almost providing some confusion, you know, because like we know when it comes to training, when it comes to nutrient, like yes, everybody goes down somewhat similar paths, right? There's only so many different ways to move the body. There's only so many ways to eat. But at the end of the day, it's the customization that is where the client sees so much of that value, that I think the authentic, open dialogue conversation and drawing that information out from that person is almost the beginning of that path before the training kicks in and it's customized, the nutrition kicks in and it's customized. We're almost like pre-framing the fact that like this is unique to you. We've got all of the tools, we've got the resources, but this is your path is going to be slightly different than the person next to you. If we did it from a presentation, it's almost like we're forcing everybody to go follow this one path. I think it'd be hard to kind of cater as much of that conversation to the customization component as it would be buy my thing.
Yeah, and if you might have one path, but how you communicate to, so like we have one membership, or two memberships, right? One membership,
two different ways,
two options. But how I present that to somebody is going to vary. And if you have multiple different membership options, let's say, back in the day, and I remember when I started here, one of the first things that Tim did was like, give me a sales pitch deck, essentially. And we had multiple services. We had large group training. We had semi-private training. We had a basic membership. With the semi-private, we had multiple different membership options, right? And so think about me taking somebody through step by step by step. And then instead of me based off of what's most important to that person, presenting that one option to them, now all of a sudden I'm presenting like 4 or 5 or 6 different options that they have to cognitively think about. We're breaking the momentum. We're breaking that emotional, selling component, and they have to go, like which one makes most sense to me? Even if I am prescribing one, I have to click through multiple slides to then get to the one that I'm like, I think you should do this. They're still considering
the things that you didn't present on. Yeah, exactly.
Well, why did they pick? Are they just trying to upsell me? Are they, giving me the most expensive option? Like, and so there's still there's cognitive load there that can prevent somebody from saying yes in that moment.
And as we all know, confused buyer is a non-buyer, right?
Yes.
I think that's one of the biggest components is presenting too many different options. I love the prescriptive close. I love the fact that keeping all of the information, tailoring the conversation to the prospect, and then presenting the one thing that we feel is the best solution for that. It's also an authoritative position, and if you do a great consultation and then all of a sudden you're going to a menu of options and you're allowing the client to decide what's the only option for them, they're not the expert. We talk about that a lot, right? They're coming to us because we are the resident expert in the area to help them get the result that they're looking for. If I present multiple options and I toss them the ball to go make the decision on which one of those options is right for them, I devalued all of that authoritative positioning that ideally you want to have, right? You want them to look at you as the one person who has that answer for them in the ways that are going to best, solve their problem. And so I definitely see, and again, I think we've internally, I think we both have leaned towards the pros of a more conversational based consultation being the avenue that we would go with. Do you think that it also depends on the model and the business itself? Because if I think about a presentation, a lot of times I'm thinking about big box gyms, where it's like a wash, rinse, repeat. You've got so many people walking through the door every day and it's just like take them down the same path where there's less of the customization in the program. Or maybe there's no customization, no program, you know what I mean? Like it's general access type stuff. So I could see it also being a case-by-case scenario on what it is you sell that might be a left or a right option, presentation versus conversational.
Yeah. Well, so a lot of people think the opposite. They believe that the higher the price point, the more they need to present to justify the price. So this is an important component of this. Before somebody ever walks in the door here for a consultation, they know what we do. Mm-hmm. They're gonna see an ad. They're going to, go to our website. However they get into our nurture sequence, they're going to book an appointment. After they book an appointment, like the very next screen that pops up is a video that is me explaining here's what we do. I've got this consultation. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what we do at the gym. And so they already know a lot of the high level, right? We don't want to give them sell one thing at a time. The goal is sell them to show up for the consultation at that point. We don't want to give them too much information so that then they go, I need this. I don't need this. They might not understand what it is that we fully do, but it's enough to give them a high level overview that would be like the first 5-6 slides of a presentation once they got here.
Yeah.
And so I think that, I don't necessarily know that the model, would make that big of a difference. Maybe like in a large group model, you could fly through it very quickly and it's a low price point and you don't need a whole lot of, connection. But then I as a customer, I wouldn't want to be, in that business, right? Like I'd be like, I'm just a number. I'm a number here. Yeah. I don't think I would need a presentation if I'm attracted to that. I don't think I would need a presentation to sign up for that. I think I'd just click and buy,
Yeah.
The other piece of this is one-to-one versus one-to-many. If I'm going to sell from stage, I'm going to use a pretation because I'm selling from that. I can't.
You don't know everyone.
I don't know everyone, exactly. And I can't. There's a totally different strategy for how you do that and overcome objections and have to. Before somebody even thinks it, you're addressing it, and this is an art. There's a lot that goes into this, but if I am doing a sales presentation and there's, let's just say 100 people, my close percentage is going to be a fraction of what it would be if I was sitting down doing a one-on-one consult with somebody. But this is a one-to-many where it's fast and in 45 minutes or whatever, I can close, let's say 10 people, right? My close percentage could be 10% and I closed 10 people. And the time that it took me was super, way less than me doing 10 individual consultations.
Yeah.
However, if I do 10 individual consultations, I'm probably going to close 8 out of those 10 people. So my close percentage is way, way higher. They're just totally different things. They're different environments. And if I'm getting up on stage, 100%, I'm selling from a presentation.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit down with somebody like this. Absolutely not. I'm going to have my clipboard and my notes, and I'm going to have a conversation with you. I'm going to adjust my conversation to how you respond to my questions and tone and all that. And I'm going to send you down the path that I want you to go down. Could be the same path for everybody, but how you get there is, based off of how I adjust.
Nice. I like it. Well, today's episode, like we said, it was a little bit of more conversational. There's use cases and pros and cons to both sides. I think the biggest takeaway, one, knowing your close percentage. Again, we talk all the time about knowing your data. If you have the opportunity, if somebody's sitting in front of you, you got to report those numbers. That's the data that matters. You mentioned, in a one-on-one scenario, 80% is kind of our baseline. I mean, we should be closing about 80% or greater. I could tell you, working with hundreds and hundreds of gyms over the years, most believe their closing percentage is much higher, right? 80%. But when you actually get into the data and find out that it's lower than that, this is one of those things that we teach where the obligation is on you as the owner to refine the system, optimize the system, make sure you can't do that if you don't know your numbers. So first and foremost, track your closing percentages. What system are you using that gets that result repeatedly? If it's not where you want it to be, refine the system, right? If you're doing it from a presentation right now, if you don't even have, maybe you could be winging every one of them. Yeah. And that is no system a system?
No,
but
I'm not saying that.
No.
I'm not saying that.
No, definitely don't go down that route, right?
Yeah.
But whether it be a conversational process where even in that there has to be checkpoints, right? We have the Profit method. That is a guide. We're taking people through a process to get that information out of them. It's not scripted to the point where it's the same verbiage necessarily for every single person that's sitting across from us.
But you got to check the same boxes.
But you have to check exactly. The conversation has to hit those.
It's a checkpoint. So think about like a video game, like a car racing video game, where you have to go through the little you have to pass the checkpoint, and if you miss it, you got to back up and go through the checkpoint. So it's like that. Like if I'm having a conversation with somebody and we skip something, I'm going to let the conversation continue and flow, but I'm going to bring it back to make sure we check that box, and then
before moving forward. Yeah, exactly. So make sure that you have a system in place first and foremost. You're measuring and you're tracking the data. This is how we troubleshoot the problems in gyms. I mean, this is a great kind of like example of a system that we troubleshoot with gym owners. We define the problem. Data will tell us where to look. And then with that, what are the tools and components that we can change, modify, optimize ideally in order to get a better result? And so use this conversation to your own sales process, weigh and measure it against the success that you have in your facility. If there is opportunity, make some adjustments. I mean, as an owner of the business, this is one of those tasks that between, ownership and in a director level, manager level, these are some of the tasks that should be on those plates to where you're consistently working on optimizing the business in order to get a better result over time. But sales is a massive, massive portion of the business. And I can tell you, if you don't have a system in place, that is the biggest risk that you're dealing with. It costs money to acquire those leads. It costs money to put people in front of you for a consultation. Give yourself the greatest opportunity to turn that person into a long-term member, and take what Zack said today and look at your systems in place. See which one's right for you. And either way, we hope that you're winning. But that's all we have for today. We'll catch you on the next episode of the Built to Grow, the Gym Business Coach Podcast.
Bye, y'all.
All right. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Built to Grow podcast. If you want more help growing your business, join our free Facebook group, Profit Accelerator, helping training gyms grow to $30,000 a month and beyond. We'd love to see you there. Go check out the show notes for the link and keep building something great. And we'll see you in the next episode.